Hi, I'm here today with my mom, Jenny Evans, who started Just Tea back in 1994, and we're going to discuss the proper way to bottle and put together the tea. And saying that, Mom, what would be the first thing you have to do?
I would say the first thing that you have to do is read the instructions, because regardless of whether you've made the tea for years and years and years or what, the directions are different for Just Tea than they are for others. So the first thing to do is to just read the instructions and follow them the whole way through.
That sounds pretty straightforward, Mom. I like that. So, what should we know about the herbs, the way they are, where you're going to send them out?
Well, our herbs are cut and sifted, whereas the majority of them are powdered herbs. We do that so we can know exactly what the right amount is when we mix the recipe. We don't want it just to be a hodgepodge of like all the herbs together like you find in a powder. We want it to be exactly the right amount of this herb, exactly the right amount of that herb, and so forth, so that the recipe is exactly right. That's basically what we do with measuring the herbs.
Now, I've noticed that instead of purchasing the sheep's oil, we're getting that locally here. Talk to us about that.
Yes, we do. We buy the individual herbs so that we'll know exactly what they are. But the sheep sorrel we do grow, because you can't get the sheep sorrel root any other way. So we do grow the sheep sorrel, and we use the root that we grow and put that in the right proportions into the recipe when we mix it.
Okay, so once they've got the mix in their hands and we're ready to put it together, talk to us a little bit more about what we do and how much it makes and that kind of thing.
One package of the dried herbs that you get from Just Tea makes exactly 4 quarts of tea. 4 quarts, each quart's going to last 8 days, so 4 quarts last 32 days. And the process basically is that we use a stainless steel pot. You can't use aluminum, that leaches into the tea. And you don't want to use any of the newer stuff that you don't know what leaches into the tea. Stainless steel pot that holds at least 6 quarts, because you're going to be putting a whole gallon, 4 quarts of water in there. So anything smaller than a 6-quart pot's going to boil over. So, all right, you're going to put 1 gallon plus about a cup of the distilled or reverse osmosis water in the pot. Bring it to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you put the entire contents of the herb packet into the pot. Now, we provide on our website, on our order page, the 90 grade unbleached cheesecloth food safe bags. When you buy the herb packs, you can also buy the bags. We don't sell them separately unless you're buying the dried herbs from us. We don't make them just wholesale, but we can provide them for people who order the dry tea from us. So you can use that to put your herbs in, which I think makes a lot of difference, because when it comes time to squeeze out the herbs after you've boiled it, it's much simpler and easier, and you just throw the herb bag away with all the herbs inside of it. But okay, so you brought the water to a boil, put your herbs in, boiled it 10 minutes. After 10-12 minutes, you simply cut the tea off and let it sit right there on the range, if you like, for 10 to 12 hours. If you go a little bit over 12 hours, that's not a problem. That'll work just as well. You don't want to go too far over, and you definitely do not want to go less than the 10 hours before you take it off.
Okay. Now, I know this is a little off, but I've seen it so many times, other people asking about it. How do you feel about if they want to just cook part of the tea at a time and then get back to it?
Okay, well, it doesn't work for Just Tea, so I would say that's a no-no. If you have another, I know that a lot of herbs, dry herb mixes are like that. The powder ones are easier, they just divide them up because you can't really see what it is anyway. But with ours, we try to keep our recipe absolutely correct, and the only way you can do it is by making the whole 4 quarts at one time. Then you know it's absolutely right in every bottle. So that's what we shoot for. We want you to get the most that you can out of the herbs, and that would be making 4 quarts at once. And you don't have to worry about maybe you're making too much, they're not going to keep good, because our herb tea, if you make it according to the directions, it's going to be good for you for 6 months, you know, without storage in the refrigerator. You can store it in a cupboard, you can put it in a cardboard box, what have you. But it's going to last you 6 months if you do it right. So you don't have to worry about that when you make that. So that would be my answer on that one.
I think that's a good answer. And the truth is, why would you spend that much money on a bunch of herbs and then not do it the right way and make sure you have the best product?
That's our point of view. Absolutely.
So, how high does the temperature have to be for the bottling? Tell me more about that bottling process. And it has to be in a sterile situation when you're bottling, right?
Absolutely. We use the glass quart mason jars, not mason necessarily. There are other kinds, but the canning jars with the lids and the seals. You have to sterilize them sometime during the day. While that 10 to 12 hours is going on, is a good time to boil some water and drop those bottles and the lids and the seals in there and let it sterilize for a few minutes and take it back out, put it on the counter, and you're fine with that.
And now, when it's after steep, that 10 to 14 hours, and it's time to boil it back up, how do you work that procedure?
Well, first you have to strain the herbs out. Once the steeping time is over, you need to strain it. And if you don't get the boiling bags when you brought your tea, you just strain it with a kitchen strainer, preferably stainless steel if possible, and you squeeze out as much of the juice as you possibly can. And then you bring the temperature back up over 160 degrees. 170 is fine. It can be more. You don't want to boil them again. But then you bottle it, you pour your tea into those sterilized bottles at that temperature, making sure it stays above 160 degrees, because if it drops below 160 degrees, your tea's going to spoil. Now, if you're going to drink it up, like I say, each bottle's going to last you 8 days. So you're going to drink it up pretty quick. It's going to be like 32 days worth of tea for you. So even if you don't do it perfectly, and when it comes to down to room temperature, go ahead and put them in the refrigerator. If you're concerned about it, you can put them right in the refrigerator and keep those 4 quarts in the refrigerator. If you've done it absolutely right, you only have to put 1 quart at a time in once you've opened it up.
That sounds good and sounds like a safe bet. It's going to go fast within that 32 days. And so if you're not comfortable that you've got that bottling procedure right, do refrigerate.
Yeah, do refrigerate it.
It'll keep it safe. Any last words before they get turned loose to make that tea? Does that sum it up for you, or any last words you have to say?
Well, one thing that people try to do sometimes is freeze it. They want to freeze the dry tea, or they want to know if they can freeze the bottle tea. You can't freeze either one of them. You destroy it if you freeze it, so don't do that. You want to keep your dry tea in a temperature that's between 40 and 80 degrees. You don't want to get it too hot, and you don't want to freeze it. And also with your bottle tea, same thing, between 40 and 80. But don't shift back and forth, 40 one day and 80 the next. That's not going to work for you either. That's about it as far as I can think. If you have your tea, happen to have it in your cabinets or in your box, and 3-4 months has gone by and you haven't used it, and you're worrying about whether it's good, if you did it according to the directions, it's still going to be good, so you don't have to worry about that.
Sounds good. Know your bottling technique, follow those directions, you should be good. I have seen one other thing where people are talking about where they need to put the tea bottles in, they weren't in a refrigerator, in a bag or something.
You're right, yeah, they do. People worry about whether too much light's going to get to it. And actually, the little bit of light that's in a refrigerator when you open and close, or when you take your tea out and pour it and then take your dose and put it straight back, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're going to worry about it anyway, put it in a paper bag or put it in a cloth bag. Cover it with something, and that's going to be adequate protection. It is light sensitive, but it's not extremely light sensitive. You just don't want to sit it on a counter where the sun shines in, or put it right under a bright light. That's the logic behind that.
Got it. So if it's refrigerated, you're pretty much good to go. if you've thought that you've got it properly canned so it'll last outside the refrigerator, make sure it's inside a pantry or something out of direct sunlight.
Yes, absolutely.
Even I could do that.
Even you.
Yes, ma'am.
Easy peasy.
Easy. Thank you, Mom.